I have to stay in the fight. I have to stay in the game. And if I've been given this calling, if I've been given this gift, I believe from God, how dare I not use it?
It's interesting because you and Megan Good, who I've also had on this podcast, when I look at the length of your acting careers, and you're still so young, and yet you've been in the game for so long, it's actually kind of surprising that, and this is what my question is that did you get to a point, considering when you started, where you were ever burnt out or ever doubted that this was something that you wanted to do?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I was pretty young when I felt burnt out, which is kind of sobering. It was probably like in my teenage years, up until like my 20th birthday. I was on an airplane going to South Africa, and that trip to South Africa changed my life and made me become unburnt, I should say. But yeah, I was incredibly frustrated with the industry, and at that point had been essentially doing it for 20 years, or 19 plus years. I've been in front of the camera since I was 10 months old. And so, growing up, having a taste of certain projects, a taste of working with amazing filmmakers like a Casey Lemons or Francis Coppola, or, having a scene partner in a Samuel Jackson or an Angela Bassett, it's like I got really spoiled early on and kind of had this standard in my mind of what I wanted to do, what kind of career I wanted to have, how the level of craft I should be pursuing. And the industry just wasn't ready for that for me. They hadn't caught up. And I was just frustrated with the roles that I was, being submitted for or offered or whatever. They just weren't satisfying. And, how many times can someone be told, oh, we're not willing to go ethnic on that role, and it's like, well, I'm trying to pursue the really interesting roles. First of all, there's not a lot written for women or girls to begin with, but then you're telling me because the complexion of my skin, you won't even let me read. You won't even let me get in the door. And so, yeah.
Is that how they phrase it? We're not willing to go ethnic. Is that how they phrase it?
That is the shit that they will tell your agent. There's so many different phrases. They'll say, we're not willing to go ethnic, or the role hasn't opened up yet. If it opens up. I know. It's not said as much. I haven't heard it lately. But I mean, that's like in this year, I haven't heard it,
Just in 2020.
Just in 2020. And, I've been blessed because the doors are opening, and, but yeah, it's just how much can one person take with that, without becoming a little jaded. But honestly, that trip to South Africa changed my life. And, it provided this awakening in me in which I realized it's not an option to be jaded. To be pessimist is actually a privilege, a privilege not afforded to someone like me. I have to stay in the fight. I have to stay in the game. And if I've been given this calling, if I've been given this gift, I believe from God, how dare I not use it? So that's been the approach I've taken ever since then.
Was there something that you saw or experienced in South Africa where this light bulb went off?
So many things. I'd been volunteering with this nonprofit called Artists for New South Africa since I was 12. And it was, I was inspired by so many people. I mean, my mom is an activist, so I come from that spirit. There was going to be no other option but to be active in my family, right? But watching my village, I had this village of mentors who were artists and activists like Samuel L. Jackson and Alfre Woodard and Blair Underwood and LaTanya Richardson, these people who, were as active in front of the camera as they were off, and were really able to use their platform in any way they could to be change makers. And so I was their youngest board member, and they were taking a delegation of, them and a bunch of other folks were going to South Africa to build some wells in some of the townships and, just do more on the ground work. And I was broke. I mean, there was no chance in hell my broke ass, was going to be able to go, like my family, we grew up so poor. Okay. Like it don't matter if we were on TV or not. Like we had real poverty issues. And so Sam, Alfre, Deborah Santana, and a bunch of folks pitched in, and they called me and they said, there's no way in hell we're leaving you. You're coming. And so they paid for me my whole way. When I tell you, every meal, every single thing I could ask for, they paid for me to come. They said, you got to experience this. And just the spirit of the folks in South Africa changed me. I mean, it's really something I can't quantify. I can't really put into words, stepping into these townships. We went to Ingwavuma, and you just see these children, child-run households, first of all. Now think about that. Like we met little girls who were 9 years old raising their 4 other siblings because both of her parents had passed away from complications due to AIDS, right? And so I'm like, wait, huh? Like it's different when you see it, when you bear witness to it. But then I realized, there's so much need in the world, but I am here because of art. Essentially, I am here because these artists created art. That art enabled them to travel across seas. Their art reached these people before they even traveled here and moved these folks, right? And then that art enabled them to come and build wells and build schools and do work on the ground that if I chose a different profession, I wouldn't have that level of capacity because I ain't got so many other skills, okay? Right? Been given a certain amount of gifts. I was considering doing something with math. I'm like, well, how's math? Like, I don't know that math is gonna get me here. And so watching Sam and Carlos Santana and these folks, move through this country, and then we sat down with Nelson Mandela. I mean, what the fuck, I mean, this man walked into the room, and I you have this man on a pedestal my whole life. Like, you read A Long Walk to Freedom and you like, this is the closest we gonna get to Jesus, right? Like in the flesh. And then when he walked in the room, I was like, wait, oh my gosh, he is a man. He is not a God. And all this time I've been placing these people on his pedestal, including my, mentors like Sam and Alfre. I've been placing them on a pedestal. And that it was doing such a disservice to me. We give our heroes this God complex, right? And it borderlines on idolatry, and that's not okay. It actually does more disservice to us than it does to them, because it creates such a distance between our own ability to achieve greatness, to be change makers, to be active, right? Because we think, oh, they did it, and that's in a history book. They're on a museum wall, right? And I don't think they want to be there. I think they want us to realize that they're just flesh and blood, Like I sat next to Mr. Mandela and I held his hand, and it was so warm, but it was flesh, girl. Like it was flesh and blood, okay, in there. It wasn't it wasn't Jesus.
He wasn't a ghost. He was actually
a ghost. He was actually in the flesh. Like I could see how his eyes had been damaged from working in the lime fields, and like all the moles and sunspots on his face. And I just thought, man, this is an ordinary man who has done extraordinary things. And so that trip, for a number of reasons, it just changed my life and made me feel that, I have no excuse. I just don't have an option to be pessimistic. I have no option to not use my gifts.